You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholic, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, buy some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And who dat? And welcome back. Welcome back. I know it seems like I take the biggest hiatuses and biggest breaks right before some of the biggest games and most important moments of the season. But I mean, come on, it's been Thanksgiving, it's been Christmas, it's been New Year's, and with all that, happy holidays. I hope everyone had great holidays and happy New Year's. I hope your Christmas went well, but I guess I can't stick in grind mode, I guess, like some of these other podcasters during the holidays. Just too much going on in the head to keep it consistent enough. But I'm back. I'm back in this. We got a lot to cover, go over here, because I had a pregame podcast for the Los Angeles Rams game, but didn't do a post game for that, and then didn't do a pregame for the Falcons, and now that this is like a combination of like what would usually be like one podcast. But so there's a lot to get into. So hope everyone enjoyed the holidays. I hope they're having a happy New Year's. This is too a great 2024. But let's get into this. Let's get into some of this talk about the Los Angeles Rams and how that game just went horrible, and we'll see if I can remember what my predictions are without me having to go rewatch my own videos. But anyways, can I get a menu? And so this Rams game, I was predicting it. I can eat crow, because I was kind of I think I was one of the few people that kind of just didn't think that the Rams were like that much better than the Saints, which obviously they ended up that they were, because I was just looking at who they've played and who they played good and who they've lost to, and I just waiting their schedules. I just wasn't overly impressed, but I guess I should have took more into account that they were on a 3-game winning streak and then a 4-game winning streak, and now they're on like a 5-game winning streak because they won on Sunday. But so I can admit, just Dennis Allen, he got completely out coached by Sean McVay, which that shouldn't be really a surprise, seeing how Sean McVay is a top 5 coach, top 1 or 2 head coaches in this league, and then it just didn't seem like the Saints were ready to play, and it was a little surprising. This happened a couple times this year where the defense hadn't really looked that great through like the first half, and then they kind of turn it on in the second half. Well, that was kind of the opposite. Well, that not the opposite of that. It was just kind of none of that at all. Like the defense was just pretty much terrible throughout the entire game. The first half kind of reminded me a little bit of the Detroit Lions game where they like allowed 21 points in like the first quarter. They only allowed a touchdown in the first quarter, but then they went on to allow like 10 more points. So they were on this crazy streak of like their average amount of points that they like give up in the first half is somewhere. It's got to be somewhere around 17 points a game, which is just wild. So yeah, this game didn't go how I expected it to go, like at all. This game, you can look at this is why stats and things like that are very misleading, because you can look at like Derek Carr's stats for that game, uh, and you would think, oh, he had a pretty productive day, and had some touchdowns. He was 27 for 40, which isn't a great completion percentage, but he had 319 yards, three touchdowns, and an interception with 106.1 QBR rating. And this is the post Drew Brees era, and never going to be the same or never going to be as good. But realistically, if I want to point to a game this season that Derek Carr has looked most Drew Breesy or Brees-esque, it would be this game right here, because Drew Brees, he's a great quarterback, but the teams that he played for during that, what is it, like the 14 to 16 stretch, there were tons of games uh, during that span where Drew Brees' team, the defense would give up a huge lead early, and then it's just Drew Brees fighting back, trying to just even get it tied or get it to a one-score game, and it's just garbage, just a bunch of garbage yards and garbage time touchdowns. The two touchdowns were the last two scores of the game, with only like less than 7 minutes left. They scored like two touchdowns, just complete garbage touchdowns. So, and then the interception he threw was just an awful throw. It was thrown into double coverage and thrown like right to the safety, which if you've followed Drew Brees, like Drew Brees, uh, in the latter part of his career, didn't throw a lot of interceptions, but when he did, they were usually thrown right to defenders. And then obviously earlier in his career, he was a gunslinger, so he threw quite a few interceptions, probably averaged close to 10, 15 interceptions a year, until like the last 3 or 4 years where he was throwing less than double digit interceptions every year. But yeah, so for all those people that are Derek Carr haters and are just strictly and purely just advocates of Drew Brees. I mean, heck, that looked like Drew Brees. Uh, well, I guess that was 2 weeks ago. Just the defense giving up a huge lead, and then just them fighting back and getting garbage times, yards, and touchdowns. So his touchdowns, the amount of touchdowns he had was only like he only had like what 16 touchdowns, and then in the last 2 weeks he's gotten into 20. So he had three in this game, so that'd have been 19, and then he had what two more yesterday, so 19, 20, 21. So he has 21 touchdowns now, even though coming into this game he's hardly thrown that many touchdowns. But so that's my thought on what Derek Carr looked like in this game. He looked very breezy esque, but with just going off the numbers, there is nothing else really positive from this game. I guess Chris Olave had a nice game where he had 9 catches for 123 yards with a 28-yard long, but he had no no touchdowns. And even in that game, early in that game, he had a drop on like third down that would have picked up a first down. So he's still Chris Olave. You got to take the good with the bad with him. But so we've gone over this game, most of the game, and that. Let's see if I can get into my picks and see if I can remember the ones that I picked for the Rams and the Saints. Uh, so coming into this game, prior to this game, so this will be my player of the game. Prior to this game, Jimmy Graham was on a heater of catching like a red zone touchdown game, like in 3 games in a row. So leading into this game, I finally broke down, and I think maybe for the first time this year, or maybe the second time this year, I picked Jimmy Graham to be my player of the game, but he didn't even get a target in this game. Not outside the red zone, not inside the red zone. Just didn't even get a look from Derek Carr. So that could arguably be one of my worst player of the game predictions this year. But I guess if you were going to give out a player of the game uh, to anybody, it would probably be, I guess it would be Olave, just because I mean Alvin Kamara couldn't even get more than 20 yards rushing, and obviously no one played good on defense. So I guess you'd have to give it to Chris Olave, even though he did have a drop or two in this game and didn't wasn't able to uh, wasn't able to cap off any of those drives with any points, you know. Uh, so though so my player of the game, I wouldn't say that I was even close to that one being correct, but it's good to see Chris Olave looking a little healthier. And then my prediction, or my hot take, or my prediction for this game, uh, my hot take for this game, or it would have was been so coming into this game that that the Saints haven't scored a first possession touchdown. You know, their first drive of the game, they hadn't scored a touchdown on that. So I went with that. I thought they were finally gonna be able to break that streak, and they weren't able to do it. So I that was my hot take. You know, and I guess I was a week early on that because they were able to do that with Tampa Bay scoring on their first drive and looking good early on, and then they kind of tapered off later in that game against Tampa Bay. So I was a week early on predicting or thinking that they were going to score on their first drive of the game. So I was a week early on that, so they weren't able to do that uh, against the Rams. And then my score prediction, I couldn't remember if I said it was 23 to 20 Saints or 20, 24, 21 Saints. So it was somewhere in that range of a 3 point game. And I picked the Saints to win. And obviously, they didn't happen. They just didn't look in that game at all until like the fourth quarter where the Rams were just playing like a prevent defense and basically allowed the Saints to get back in the game. And the Saints had the ball a couple times, once or twice at the end of that game, with it being just an 8 point game, and weren't able to do anything. So they just weren't impressive pretty much the entire day against them. So I think that may be one of the first times that I give a big fat zero on any of my predictions. Every single one of those was wrong. So that was bad, and that was just as bad as the Saints lost and how they looked 2 Sundays ago. So that's enough of that. That 2 Sundays ago, I say 2 Sundays ago, more like 2.5 Thursdays ago. So that just was that was forever ago. That was like 18 days ago. Talking about this Rams game as if anyone still cares. So enough of that. We've moved on from that. So now, so I was never able to do a pregame for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I never did one. I never got around to doing it. But usually with them, I talk about like the injury reports and all that. So I wasn't really even that up to date because just the holidays and being busy doing other stuff. I wasn't even that up to date with what the Saints injury report was going into this game against the Buccaneers. But I'll just go over theirs real quick. I'm not going to go over the Buccaneers at all because it's irrelevant now, anyways. But just want to go through this real quick because kind of interesting how there's some players that have been practicing seems for the last couple of weeks but still aren't playing, and it'd be interesting if they if you get to see them at all in week 18, the last game of the year possibly. So first player on that list is it's non-injury related, did not practice Wednesday and then practiced Thursday and Friday, and that's Jordan Howding, safety. He played, and then Lonnie Johnson Jr. Knee, didn't practice all week, and he's out. He didn't play. And then tackle. This is the one that I wanted to talk about. This is kind of why I'm going over this injury report again. Is Ryan Ramczyk with that knee? That knee did not practice all week and was out. Didn't play in this game. I'm pretty sure he went on season IR. So he's done for the season. They're talking about whether he'll be able to come back or not, or he's in the off season. He's looking to try to find a solution for that knee problem, which probably means knee surgery. And it just, 29 years old. been a stalwart of this offensive line for several years. At times been an elite right tackle. I just I just think it's about time. It's about over. About time to retire. Just that knee. It's not allowing you to play anymore. And that's sad. That's sad that a player that is not getting to choose. Whether their career continues. Because 29 for an offensive lineman isn't old, isn't ancient or anything. He still could have had 4 or 5 years if he was healthy, but that knee, that thing, been talking about it like after games. That thing probably has to get drained, or it looks like it's about to pop like a pimple, or just the degenerative knee, the arthritic knee. Man, that's just bad luck for such a great player. So it sounds like Ryan Ramchek's day uh, season is over, and maybe career, maybe just with the Saints, but not looking good for Ryan Ramczyk. So that's just upsetting. That was upsetting to hear because it seemed like all year and the last couple of years that they've done a good job of monitoring that knee and giving him enough rest, and it just you're what you're doing, it just the luck ran out, I guess. The 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 endurance of that knee, it finally wore out. All right, so that's something that was upsetting going into this game against the Buccaneers and just last week. And then defensive end Isaiah Foskey dealing with a quadricep, and he practiced I think a little bit last week, and then he limited practice all week this week, and was listed as questionable, even though if he was quote unquote limited practice at all last week for the game against the Rams, it would have just been more of like a walkthrough than an actual practice. But he was limited all week in actual practice this week and was listed as questionable, but still didn't play, which is disappointing to me. I want to see these young players, uh, especially ones that you've spent first, second, or third rounder on to play. And at least and I'm one of the few people that think that he was starting to flash a little bit, and then of course he's hurt, and now he's practicing and still not playing. So that's annoying. There's a couple more of those players that were on this injury report that are like that. And then you have defensive end Cameron Jordan, been dealing with this ankle almost all year, it seems like, and just hasn't been very productive in pass rush. I mean, I swear, and even in the game against the Buccaneers, uh, Cam Jordan, it seems like he can't even buy a sack. Like he'll be the first one there to get a hand on a quarterback, or even trying to get a tackle for a loss on a running back. Like he's the first guy there. He's the one that blows up the play, but he can't be the one that makes the tackle to get the TFL or get the sack. Wild. Like Cameron Jordan, he's not having a great year, but if you watch all of his snaps and the disruption, he's still a disruptive player. Just can't seem to finish. Has done a poor job finishing this year. And then center Eric McCoy, uh, dealing with a foot injury. He was limited all week, and then what had no game time designation, just like Cam Jordan didn't. And then here's another player that's been like we've been hearing like, oh, they're getting close. They're practicing. They're going through the walkthroughs and they're going through the practice all week, and they're still not playing. And I'm talking about your I guess that's your third round pick uh, from 2023. It's 2024 already, which is wild. As running back Kendre Miller has been dealing with an ankle injury for what, like 7 weeks or something like that, and never went on IR or anything. And then I guess didn't have a setback, but just his healing process halted. Some weird story like that from Dennis Allen. But yeah, Kendra Miller ankle. He was limited all week, and then was listed as questionable, and then was still inactive. I mean, what's up with that? I don't. I hope those guys. I hope Isaiah Foskey. I hope Kendra Miller. I hope Peyton Turner. I hope all three of those guys play against the Falcons, whether the Saints win or lose. I just want to see these young guys. I definitely want to see Peyton Turner because I think out of those three, just because of the fact he wasn't a rookie, I expected big things from Peyton Turner this year, and only got to see him for like a half of football this year. And then wide receiver Chris Olave supposedly still dealing with that ankle injury, and he was limited all week and is out. And then Peyton Turner, the toe injury, we all know about that. He went through the walkthroughs and stuff last Thursday, and then he he was limited all week leading up to the Buccaneers game, and then was questionable, and then didn't play. And then you have this illness, the the illness that's been going around for months. It seems like it pops up on like everyone's injury report. We have a running back Alvin Kamara who popped up with that illness on Friday and was questionable, but then it ended up playing. But the thing with him is he ended up getting hurt in the game against the Buccaneers. Him and seemed like every time the Saints had a positive play in the game against the Buccaneers, someone was going down with an injury. The first one it was like Jawan Johnson, uh, and then Nephi Sewell. I'm just trying to think of who all else went out. There was Landon Young went out of that game. Alvin Kamara went out of that game. I'm sure there's a player that I'm missing. Like I swear, it seems like every time the Saints would make a big defensive play, like Alontae Taylor or Paulson and Debo got the interception, or uh, uh, a, Jonathan Abrams got the interception or forced a fumble. Next thing you know, there's an injured Saint player down, like the Juwan Johnson touchdown. He scored the touchdown. Next thing you know, his shoulder is dangling. That was the most annoying thing about the game against the Buccaneers. You know, it was great that they won, but sheesh, after every good play by the Saints, it was your excitement got extinguished like a freaking cigarette butt the second exciting moment happened. So yeah, Alvin Kamara, he's hurt now, so that makes it even more pivotal that Kendra Miller makes his way back, because you know it looked like he got tackled with one of those drop tackles, the way they drop tackle, hip drop tackles on him. And then before that, it was on a tackle where he broke some tackles, and then the defender just kind of had a hold of his ankle and gave it a little twist. So he's dealing with some kind of ankle injury, either due to some kind of slightly dirty play by a Buccaneers player that kind of gave his ankle a little bit of a twist as he was trying to get away from him, or the hip drop tackle that happened on Alvin Kamara. So I definitely want to see more Jamal Williams pick it up a little bit, and hopefully Kendre Miller can play. And then punter Lou Headley dealing with the same illness, and he was dealing with it the exact same way. Wasn't on the report Wednesday or Thursday, and then popped up on it Friday, and then it was questionable, but ended up playing and actually had a couple of decent punts in the game against Tampa. Had a couple inside the 10, a couple. I think he may have had, if you just go inside the 20, I think he had 3 inside the 20 in that game. All right, so that's the injury report. Kind of wanting to go over it to kind of understand where I am talking about this game here. So the Saints won this game. They were fighting for their playoff lives. You know, their only last hope was to win this game and then have quite a bit of luck and help from other people. But yeah, the Saints, they ended up winning this game and pretty much dominated and controlled it the entire way. They won 23-13, and kind of similar to the Saints against the Rams. The Buccaneers, they just kind of got like 2 garbage time fourth quarter touchdowns and weren't even able to convert on 2-point conversion. But the Saints, their defense was just like dominant in this game. Like uh, Baker Mayfield passed for a lot of yards, but they couldn't like run the ball like at all, and they were forcing turnovers. Alontae Taylor had his first career interception. Um, Jonathan Abrams had an interception and forced a fumble. Maybe had one of the best games of his career. And he's an X-Raider. You know, he's saw him coming off the field a couple times after making a big play, and him giving hugs and getting some love from Derek Carr, because they both played together in Oakland. I think it was probably Oakland still then when definitely was when Carr was drafted. I think it maybe still was for maybe 1 or 2 years when Jonathan Abrams was tackled. So yeah, I'm trying to go back and think about. It's wild to think that they turned the ball over that many times. So I guess Paulson Adebo didn't get an interception. I think that may have gotten called back due to like roughing the passer or something. So yeah, Paulson Adebo, they only had 3 turnovers in this game, which was an interception, and yeah, it was an interception by Jonathan Abrams, a forced fumble by Jonathan Abrams, and then Alante Taylor interception. And I think Paulson Adebo did have an interception, but it came on the 2-point conversion try. It's weird. It's weird how you can have like a strip sack or a pick six or something on a 2-point conversion, but it doesn't count towards your normal stats. It's kind of weird. So Saints, that's the big factor for the Saints winning this game is just how good their defense was and how good they were at, 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 at forcing turnovers, which is something they've done all year. I think you probably look back at games, games that they've won and games that they've lost are probably games where they've either forced turnovers or haven't forced turnovers. But I mean, even with that, Baker Mayfield still had a pretty good day, honestly. He had 22 completions off of 33 attempts for 66.7 yards with 309 yards, which that's kind of funny because that's how many yards Derek Carr had last week against the Rams, and then he had two touchdowns, then the 2 interceptions, and he was actually sacked twice. Wow, Saints actually got pass rush on an opposing quarterback for once. But other than those big yardage and a couple catches here and there by Chris Godwin, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Trey Palmer just fumbling a ball, just straight up choking it up. I keep going over these the turnovers. I'm trying to remember. So they did have 4 turnovers because they had the fumble that Jonathan Abrams forced on Rashad White on a running play, and then they had another fumble on what was it, like a 54-yard completion to Trey Palmer, and then he just stumbled and bumbled and fell down on his own and fumbled it, and then they did throw the 2 interceptions. So it was nothing too impressive or nothing to write home about for what the Buccaneers did against the Saints. Let's see, go over some of their stats real good. So Derek Carr, he had a productive day, just efficient more than that. It wasn't overly impressive or anything, but efficient. 24 for 32, which is a 75 percent completion percentage. Which that's kind of Drew Breesy. That's just not the yards he's threw for. He only threw for 197 yards, but had the 2 interceptions. No, the 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, 1 sack, and then 111.1 quarterback rating. So that's not too shabby. And then Alvin Kamara, some people thought he wasn't having like a great day until he went out. But I mean, before he went out, that was like towards the end of the first half. He had 10 carries for 45 yards with a 4.5 yard average and a long of 13. So he wasn't having a horrible day. And then he also, let's see, he had 2 catches for 4 yards. So that's not very impressive. But we're talking about how Kendra Miller is hopefully going to be healthy and going to be able to step up if Alvin Kamara is out. But Jamal Williams, he looked okay with an increased touch load, a load to carry. But his average just wasn't anything. He seemed to kind of like wear on the Buccaneers a little bit as the game kind of went on, but just because they stuck with the rush. But I mean, early on he was getting stopped for losses or only picking up like 1 or 2 yards. But towards the end of the game, he started picking up some yards. But they actually gave it to him almost 20 times. He had 19 carries for 58 yards, which is just a 3.1 yard average. But later in the game, he did have like a 17-yard run, which was like the long of the day. And then so if we were I didn't do like a player of the game and prediction or hot take for the game, and then didn't I actually had a score. I had a score picked out and team picked out. But if I was to pick a player of the game, now that the game's over already, I can't really make a prediction because whatever's happened, happened. But if I was just to pick a player of the game, it was definitely Juwan Johnson. I mean, he had his definitely easily his best game of the year. You know, he's kind of been injured or kind of quiet, or they've been having him do stuff that he usually wasn't doing as much of last year. You know, blocking and chipping and staying in the block. But yeah, I would say Juwan Johnson was the player of the game. Either Juwan Johnson or Jonathan Abrams, who had the interception and the forced fumble. You could definitely, if you're saying one's for the defense and one's for the offense, so the defense would definitely be Jonathan Abrams, who had 5 solo tackles, five combined, an interception. Let's see, an interception, a pass deflection, and the forced fumble on Rasheen White. So yeah, so your player of the game on defense, Jonathan Abrams, and then uh, probably probably Juwan Johnson easily. He made that crazy diving catch. I think that was in the second quarter. The Saints were backed up, and he made a crazy like diving and tumbling catch uh, for like it was a 32-yard gain. But yeah, he had 8 catches for 90 yards, 11.3 average, a 32-yard long, which was that crazy diving, tumbling catch that he had, and then he had a touchdown, and that all came off of 12 targets. So uh, felt like Derek Carr was starting to feel kind of more comfortable with his tight ends for once this year. Also, one of his other touchdowns came on a 22-yard like go route uh, pass to Taysom Hill, which he technically is listed as a tight end. So uh, Derek Carr and them tight ends were working. They were working uh, on Sunday, and then can't really give you a hot take or a prediction, you know, because all of whatever's happened. But I didn't really have one going into this game. But yeah, I picked who I was leaning towards who I thought was going to win, and I kind of had a score picked out for that. So I you know just feeling completely deflated after the Rams game, you know, and uh, just so much going on, you know, with the with the holidays and all that holidays, the New Year's, you know, and I just felt after that loss to the Rams that it's pretty much over with. Even though the Rams they looked phenomenal in that game, they looked very comparable to their Super Bowl team from a couple of years ago. But I was just once again that's how the Saints team is. They're very inconsistent. The second you think they've got stuff figured out and turned around, that they lose, and then you kind of off the got like 1 foot off the bandwagon, and then they win. But yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe the Buccaneers, you know, they're on a heater. They've won the most games in a row in the NFC South. So maybe they'll just go ahead and finish the Saints off and get the win and and just start making mock drafts. But that's not what happened. But I picked the Buccaneers to win 30-20, which was going to be the same score that they lost to the Patriots in the 2021 playoffs, Drew Brees' last year retirement game or whatever. But yeah, that was my prediction. I predicted the Buccaneers to win. And I thought there was going to be some familiarity behind the score with it being 30-20 Tampa. But the Saints they were able to pull this one out and controlled the game for the majority of the through basically the first three quarters pretty much just dominated and controlled the game through time of possession and their defense just being very stingy and won 23-13 with the Buccaneers getting just some late garbage time touchdowns in the fourth quarter. But so that's all that. So it's a in one podcast. It's a lot to digest. But now the Saints are still in this thing. They're still in this thing, and not just the NFC South. That they can win they can get that seventh seed too, son. They can get that as well. Not everything fell their way yesterday. It would have probably helped if like the Rams would have lost, uh, but they got some help where they needed it. The Seahawks lost to the Steelers. Uh, Green Bay beat the Vikings. That one could have won either way. If the Vikings would have won, then they would have needed to lose the next game, and then if the Green Bay Packers did win, so now they have to lose the next game. So not just the Saints winning against the Falcons, so finishing out the season with the win, but so then a lot of people are real down on the Buccaneers on if they will. There's a possibility that they could actually lose to the Panthers, which I think there is a very real possibility of that. Now the Panthers they've clinched the first round pick in the draft, which it's not even theirs anyways. It's the Chicago Bears anyway, so that they really care about uh, tanking or not, or even if that's what they were doing, they may be just a bad team. But so if you don't think that the Saints have to win against the Falcons regardless, which is going to be it's I know a lot of people wish it was just already over and we were doing mock drafts and things like that, but it's exciting. It's exciting that the Saints are actually playing a meaningful game on week 18. But so if you don't believe that the Saints will win, this is with the Saints winning regardless of what everyone else does. So if you don't believe that the Buccaneers could possibly lose to the Panthers, even though the Panthers beat the Falcons just like 2 weeks ago, and now they have nothing to worry about in regards to like draft um, positioning. The Panthers don't. They're just playing solely on pride at this point. Some Panther pride, you know, not the Lions, but some Panther pride, some big cat pride, some big cat energy. So I think it's very possible that the Buccaneers could lose to the Panthers. They both play at one o'clock, one Eastern, uh, noon Central time. So they'll be playing at the same time. So they won't be able to know who's winning or who's doing what until like the end of the game. So that's good. They'll be both Buccaneers and New Orleans will be uh, playing like it matters. But so if you don't believe that the Buccaneers could lose to the Panthers, well, here's the other alternative for the Saints not to win the fourth seed and not win the NFC South, but they could still win the seventh seed. And it takes a little bit more help, but it's also something that I could see happening. So you would need the Green Bay Packers to lose to the Chicago Bears, which the Chicago Bears have actually looked pretty good since they've got Justin Fields back, since the Saints played them, played Tyson Badgett or several weeks ago. Since then, and since Justin Fields came back, luckily the Bears didn't have Justin Fields then, because I think the Saints would have got whipped by the Chicago Bears, kind of like the Chicago Bears whipped the Falcons yesterday, 37-17. So week 18, if the Buccaneers don't lose, the Saints will need the Green Bay Packers to lose to Chicago, which I think is very possible. And then the other game, so the Seahawks lost. The Saints would have pretty much been eliminated from a chance to uh, win, possibly get in as a seventh seed in the playoffs if the Seahawks wouldn't have lost 30-23 to the Steelers on Sunday. But now the Saints will need Green Bay to lose to the Bears, and then the Saints will need the Seattle Seahawks to lose to the Cardinals, which just like the Bears, they've actually looked kind of decent at times since Kyler Murray's come back from his ACL injury, and they just beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, beat them 35 to 31. So I don't see any reason why the Cardinals couldn't beat the Seahawks. You know, it's a divisional game. Anything can happen in a divisional game. Same with the Green Bay and the Bears. Anything can happen in the Green Bay. I got this weird feeling that I almost feel like uh, the Seahawks losing to Arizona and Green Bay losing to the Bears. That almost feels more likely than the Buccaneers losing to the Panthers. And there's some uh, weird feeling or sense that I have that I would almost like it more if the Saints somehow got in as the seventh seed, because you've heard people and commentators and broadcasters talk all year about how the NFC South is like so terrible, and and then when it comes down to the last week and the start of the wild card weekend, two teams from the NFC South end up making the playoffs. I would love that, honestly, and because I want the Saints to get in the playoffs. I want them to win, even if they don't get in the playoffs. It'll still be, and to me, I just like to win. It'd be nice to have a winning record, and that would, this stuff people hate, but it would be more understandable as to why they're gonna probably more than likely retain Dennis Allen. So that's the outlook for it. Is can the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beat the worst team in the league, or some division rivals that have kind of gotten hot towards the end of the street? Can they win in Arizona and and the Chicago Bears? But I'm excited. Every week it seems like the last month or two, every time after the Saints have won, I'm saying like this is the last high point of the season. You better enjoy the week. Because this is going to be the last game of the season, or they're not going to make the playoffs, or this may be the last like bright glimmer of hope left in the season. Well, this is probably the last one of that, unless they actually do make the playoffs and actually have another game to play. But not just that, if they don't, then it's just the last game of the season for the Saints. But I'm excited. I am excited, and I'll try to stay more in tune and focus with you guys coming into the week 18, the last game of the season. So I'll try to uh, do a better job of putting together a pregame show and putting together a postgame show, and hopefully we're going into it with division champ hats on, and even if not, I'd wear a wild card seventh seed team, and as you can see, the Saints hadn't been doing great all year, but I got me a New Orleans Pelicans, a Pelly's hoodie here. I got that. I got one of them for Christmas, looking nice, and they're looking nice. Just clap the Los Angeles Lakers cheeks last night. Beat them by 20 points, 129 to 109. So we for people that are New Orleans sports fans and are Saints fans, the Pelicans are 5 games above 500, so they're looking nice, honestly. So there's something definitely to transition to, and if you enjoy winning, they're doing a lot of it right now. But I'm excited for how this build up, and it's all gonna come to a head on Sunday. So there's games on Saturday too, but the Saints play noon, 1 Eastern time on Sunday. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So who dat? And can I get a check, please?